In today's video tutorial, we are going to discuss about generative adversarial network, popularly known as GAN. So there are two important terms over here. One is generative and another is adversarial. So let's look at them first and we'll delve into the working of GAN. So generative models actually have two objectives. One is density estimation or estimation of the probability density function. So let's say you are given some points in 1D plane, okay, which are shown in the left hand side. So what you want to find out is that which probability density function would have generated such kind of observation in the left hand side. Typically such a density function will be denoted or symbolized by parameters like theta, and you want to find out value of theta which maximizes the likelihood of these observations coming from the probability distribution denoted by theta. So such technique is called as maximum likelihood estimate or MLE. So this is one of the objectives. Another objective is actually generation of samples. So here on left hand side you have some real data or real photos, and from that you want to generate samples which are synthetic, that is not real but as realistic as possible. Okay, so here is the focus on creating as realistic or as authentic looking synthetic data. So you might have already understood that a generative model is not something new in machine learning. So whenever we have looked at machine learning classifiers, we have categorized them into discriminative models and generative models. So the discriminative models, if you look in this left hand side, basically let's say you are given two classes, one is this blue class, another is red class, and you want to draw a decision boundary between these two classes so that these classes are well discriminated by this decision boundary. And if you think of the goal, so you want to learn probability of y given x. Okay, so if some input values for a particular observation is given, okay, then what is the probability of that observation being in particular class? Okay, so this is probability of y given x. Okay, so y you can think of also the class here. Okay, all right. So this is the objective of discriminative model. One important such model is SVM. In fact, most of the models that are in machine learning are actually discriminative models. In contrast, generative model actually tries to fit a probability distribution here. You see that there are these two classes and you are actually trying to fit different probability distribution, trying to understand the parameters. So if you can do that, actually what you are trying to estimate is probability of x given y. So if it is told to you that the class is a red class, so you can say that okay, what are going to be the coordinates of these particular points. Okay, so this is the goal of the generative model, and as it tries to learn probability of x given y, it can also generate new samples. So this is one of the advantages of generative model. Okay, now the GAN are not the only set of generative models. There are a lot of set of generative models which have been studied for quite long time. However, I will not go into a detailed discussion on that, but I will point to Goodfellow's excellent tutorial given in NIPS 2016. The slide is from there. So a couple of things that I would like to tell over here is that as we said that most of the generative models can be told to be following this maximum likelihood estimate technique, and this can be classified into explicit density and implicit density. So explicit density is that you are focusing on finding the value of theta, and implicit density is that you actually focus more on the generation and you do not really want to understand the exact form of the density. So that's why it falls under the implicit density. So important some other deep learning based important models are variational autoencoder and Boltzmann machine. From the other domain you have this fully visible belief nets. Okay, But some of the old ML based techniques were very sequential, so the generation or the optimization of the models are not actually parallel. Okay, so again I will recommend that please go through the tutorial by Goodfellow if you want to know more about the different types of generative models. Okay, now you have this term adversarial. So adversarial models or adversarial machine learning actually tries to find out vulnerability of the machine learning model, and in that way actually improves the working of the models. Okay, so one quite famous instance is from 2004 when Nilesh Dalvi and his collaborators actually tried to find out vulnerability of spam filters. Okay, so the spam classification problem, right? So you want to classify an email as a good email, a spam email, or a ham email. Okay, so what these guys did was that in the spam emails they inserted some good words which are expected more from the ham side of the emails. Okay, and the classifiers were actually fooled. Okay, so this exposed one weakness. So this type of techniques are called as evasion attacks. One other type of attacks are called as poison attacks, where you actually poison or make the training data impure. So as a result, the knowledge learned from there is also not right. One other very famous example from literature of adversarial machine learning is in case of automated cars. Okay, so a automated car can look at or needs to look at a traffic sign and understand that what sign it is. So as example, this is a stop sign. But if you perturb the data a little bit and you add some scribbles over here, the model is actually fooled to understand this as a speed limit sign. Okay, now let's see that what is the connection of this adversarial setup or adversarial philosophy in GAN, and what is the anatomy of GAN model. So before that, let's look at some of the magics that GAN can create. Okay, so if you look at this particular picture and I tell them that these are celebrities, you might wonder that are they from science, literature, entertainment? They don't look familiar, but actually this generative adversarial network has made them famous because these people do not exist in real, and actually there is a site probably by the name celebrities doesn't exist or the celebrities doesn't exist, where you can find such very realistic faces. There is another group of work which is called as style transfer. So you can see that it is a sketch, and from that sketch you can come up with a very realistic photo of that particular artifact. Similarly, you can do a style transfer. You can take a landscape which is probably from summer and you can project that how that landscape will change in winter. Okay, so this type of filters you see all around us, in different photo editors you get this type of filters which actually are contributions from GAN. Okay, and another very famous example is also where the motion of a horse was transferred to a zebra. The paper or that particular type of GAN is called a cycle GAN. These are kind of magical promises that GAN makes. Okay, it can be very easily used for restoration of images. Okay, and it turns out that these images are more robust or more realistic than the traditional ML based methods, which introduces kind of a blurry effect in the image. Okay, so now this generative adversarial network has actually two components. Okay, in contrast to maybe other generative models. So one is this generator component, okay, and another is this discriminator component. Both are neural networks. So this discriminator actually plays the adversary of the generator. Okay, so this actually tries to challenge the generator, and that way generator learns better. The ultimate objective is, of course, to generate realistic data. Okay, so how this process actually starts? So generators start by creating fakes. So basically there are two terminologies that we get from this GAN literature. So one type of output is called as real output, and another type of objects are called as fake. Okay, so initially the samples which are imprecise named samples that are getting generated from the generator model, these are fakes. Okay, and the generator model doesn't have an access to the real data. The discriminator has access to the real data, and it builds a classifier model and assigns a score to the fakes that are getting generated by the generator model. Okay, so gradually it is expected to create more authentic kind of samples, as you can see in this image. So let's say you want to generate a fake currency. Okay, and your initial generations are like this. Okay, so this is a real data which the discriminator sees, but the generator doesn't see. So generator tries to generate something very random at the starting, and gradually it may have realized that okay, there is a face somewhere here and there are some numbers, but it is still a fake, not close to the real data. But once it goes through many of the rounds, it is expected to come up with very realistic kind of samples that are getting generated by the generator. Okay, so the discriminator is again and again challenging, telling this is fake, this is fake. So that's how it is learning, and that's why we call this generative model is actually learned in an adversarial setting or GAN. Okay, now another similar example is when you want to generate realistic example of a cat. So you can start with some scribblings like this, then you slowly go to a sketch of cat. Still up to this, the discriminator is saying that these are fakes, these are not right outputs. But after many attempts, probably it can generate something like this. May not be exactly like what you have in the real data, but very close to that. Then the discriminator says, okay, you are quite good. Okay, so the architecture is something like this. Okay, so you see that you have real images. Okay, and this real image is visible only to the discriminator. So this is one of the very important points. And the generator doesn't have access to that. The discriminator works as a classifier, binary classifier. So the real class data comes from these ground truths, and the fake data, okay, the other class data actually comes from the generator. So that's how actually the discriminator learns. And there are two loss functions because there are two neural networks. So one loss function is typical for the discriminator, and another loss function is for the generator. So one other very important part is that this happens when the GAN model is actually training. Okay, so once the GAN model is trained, the only part that you are going to use for creating samples is just this part. Okay, because now the generator already has capability of generating very realistic samples, and you don't need the discriminator part. Now let's look at this training of generator and discriminator in more details. So like other neural networks, so the discriminator has some parameters theta. Okay, and there is a loss function over here. So with this loss function, the discriminator learns the weights. Okay, you might be wondering that why we have samples over here. Again, I will not go into much in-depth discussion on this. So essentially there is something called as a truncation effect. So it turns out that if your actual probability distribution are like this, and if you create a sample on that, the sample probability distribution will look something like this. So it has less extreme values. So that gives the discriminator access to more probabilistic samples. Okay, now let's look at the GAN part. Okay, and in the GAN part, what happens is that you have this generator loss, and it goes to the discriminator. The generator has some parameters. Okay, and these parameters are again learned through backpropagation using this generator loss function. One other distinction that I want you to pay attention to is that when the generator training is happening, the discriminator is involved. Okay, but the discriminator weights are actually kept constant, because if you don't keep the discriminator weights constant, then learning the parameters for the generator will be kind of a moving target. Okay. So what is the loss function now? All right. So the loss function has two components, and it actually comes from your binary cross entropy intuition. Okay. So let's see what is happening over here. So the dx is discriminator estimation of the probability that real instant data x is real. So this is applicable for the discriminator, okay, but not for the generator, because generator is not worried about this. Ex is expected value over all real data instances, yes, so that is there, and Gz is the generator's output when given noise z. Okay. So probably I should have discussed this earlier, that one of the very interesting things to the generator is that this noise z, right? So why do I give some noise to the generator? Okay. So the noise is actually so if you think of maybe a multivariate probability distribution, or let's take a univariate probability distribution. So the most likely value may be somewhere here, okay, most likely value may be somewhere here, and corresponding to this may be a particular type of sample that gets generated, right? So every time you get the same generated value. So when you add the noise, what happens is that even if you given some particular images of cat, when the like cat images are produced by the generator, there is some variance from there. Otherwise there is no fun, right? There is no use of it. Okay, so there is some diversity which comes because of this noise. Okay. All right. So the generator takes an input z and produces zz. Okay. Which is actually the generator's output, and dgz is the discriminator's estimate of the probability that a fake instance is real. So what the generator wants? The generator actually tries to maximize this. So as it is this in a negative form, so basically the overall objective function, the generator actually tries to minimize it. Okay. So you see, and the discriminator actually tries to maximize it. So this is a very, very interesting setting that both are learning using the same loss function. Generator is trying to minimize it, discriminator is trying to maximize it. Perfect adversarial setting, similar to the min max game setting, min max setting in game theory. Okay. One other thing is that how the training happens in case of gap. Okay. So you can understand this training cannot, for generator and discriminator, cannot happen together. So they happen alternatively. So first maybe the generator is trained for 1 to 2 epochs, okay, then the discriminator is trained for 1 to 2 epochs, and that's how it continues. But one thing that we need to understand is that whenever we are training the generator, the discriminator weight needs to be kept constant, right? All right. So you want the network to converge for like any neural network, but here there is a problem. The problem is that when the generator actually starts creating very realistic samples, okay, then the discriminator is actually at a fix, because this data also looks like real. So in that case, identifying something as a fake, the accuracy actually goes to something like 50%, which you can take like a random guess. Okay. So if the discriminator has now been reduced to making random guess, the feedback that it gives to the generator is also not good. Okay. So that way the quality actually suffers. So this is something we need to pay attention to. And also there is one problem that is often discussed, that we should not have a very, very strong discriminator. Okay. Because if you have a very strong discriminator, and when the generator is generating something at the very initial go, and if it starts telling, all right, this is 100% fake. Okay. So every time if it is not genuine and it tells it is 100% fake, then there is no differentiation that can take place, right? So if there is no differentiability, then the network cannot learn, right? So a very strong discriminator at the very starting is also not one of the things that you will desire for. now the discussion that we have done over here is keeping this same loss function in mind. However, it is not necessary that you have to have same loss function. In fact, there is also vanishing gradient problem associated with GAN, and for that different other loss functions came later in the literature, which we can discuss later. And there are also several other GAN architecture which came upon, which also we will discuss later. So thanks guys for listening to our lecture on GAN, and I hope you have learned something. If you have any doubts, please feel free to give your comments, and we'll try our best to get back to you. So we'll back with more details on GAN and a hands-on session.